All right. So today, this went down. I'm shocked. We're going to have like a brief moment to talk about the Rust trial that's been going on. But the jury went in, and within a couple hours, they came back and said, well, she's guilty. They're saying the armor is guilty right now. So now she has to go to sentencing in a month. But, the thing is with this, Gutierrez-Reed, she could face originally up to 3 years in prison. But because she's guilty for involuntary manslaughter, I should say, but she's not guilty for evidence tampering. That's what it was, evidence tampering. So because she's not guilty for evidence tampering and only for the manslaughter, now what's going to have to happen is they're going to change the verdict. So it could be up to 18 months in prison, and a fine of $7,000 is how bad it could actually get for her. Beyond that, nothing. So no 3 years anymore. That'll be off the table. But, that was really fast. I'm not surprised because I think that this is going this way. Now, the defense was trying to be like, well, she's a scapegoat for management failures and she wasn't, offered enough time. And the prosecution came forward and said that, she was just negligent. Like the fact these bullets were there, that should be her fault. And they had 2 weeks for this trial. I mean, having live rounds on set is not good at all. But we had it. We lost somebody. It's very unfortunate. And I think the jury just quickly said, hey, she's guilty. So it makes me interested, though. What will happen with Alec Baldwin moving forward? If they're going to say she's guilty, will Alec Baldwin, you think he's shaking a little bit, being like, oh, shit, they might come after me, too. If they're saying she's guilty, maybe they'll come after me. I don't know. It's different situations because, again, this might be a win for Alec Baldwin because they're putting it back on her as opposed to going management. But it could also be, something bad for him as well because maybe they're going to try to say everybody's guilty for this situation. What do we think about this, guys? What do you think about this? Because it's big news for a long time. So what do you think? Do you think that I'll go to Mike first. Mike, do you think that this is bad news for Alec Baldwin? Are you shocked on what happened here today? That it happened that fast too? Do you think this trial would go on longer?
One of the benefits of being on this show, Brian, is that we have opinions over these scenarios that go back a little ways in time. So you can go back to the first instance of this where we're saying, it's the armor. You got to blame the armorer, which is unfortunate. I'm sure this is incredibly damaging to her. She didn't want this to happen. There's so much going on. I spoke before about a rule that was instituted in Hollywood because obviously sets are a high pressure environment, right? Nobody wants to empower the armorer to say, hey guys, stop, you got to shut everything down. We got to run through all of these, because that's expensive. So if you begin to say something like that, it's very easy for me to see a situation where the producers bring you over to the side and say, yeah, we don't have time to do that. So there was something, and I looked it up because I remembered the situation. You know Brent's rule, Brian?
No, Brent's rule.
Brent's rule was instituted. A guy, I think, in the early 2000s. He was a union member, and they'd been on set for something like 20 plus hours. He was driving home, 4 a.m. after having gotten to work middle of the night before, and he got into a crash and he died, which is incredibly unfortunate. But due to that scenario, there was a good outcome, which a lot of the unions installed I can't think of the name for general union members that aren't cast members, pardon me, but you can't work for more than 14 hours continuously on a set, right? That's Brent's rule. So in this instance, I can very easily see, or I actually feel there's an obligation to the industry to put rules enabling in no certain terms that the armorer special, because they probably have the ability to pull the plug at any point at any rate, right? But they should be acknowledging the pressures that exist on a set. So there should be kind of a special release valves that allows indemnity of the people that are pulling that plug from having any flack from that decision. I think anything else is not responsible.
I think they were trying to do that too because they were trying to showcase, the defense was trying to showcase that Alec Baldwin was yelling at people, rushing people, putting pressure on her, and saying that because it's Alec Baldwin, she didn't want to go up to him and yell and like you can't do it, slow it down. And so she felt pressure, and then she rushed, and problems happened. And again, the chat, she didn't hand the gun, the AD did. Now the AD is saying something different during this. The AD said that she did hand him the gun, which is totally different than he said before, which is always interesting. But I think
she's not going to see any jail time time, Brian. If it's a max of 18 months in prison, like that's the max. Like they're gonna give her time at home. They're gonna say this poor girl is traumatized. She's very young. Like,
I don't think she's a poor girl.
Well, she's a poor girl because she's presumably, even if she feels that she has any fault, which I think a jury of her peers think that she does. She probably feels really bad about the situation.
Well, when it happened, she actually was really worried about her job and not the fact that somebody died. So I don't know how bad I feel for her personally. And also, she's the person responsible for putting the bullets in the fucking gun. That's her fucking job. She should not have had any live rounds in the box of dummies. And like, there's a situation where like it's that she brought a box of live rounds from California. Like, so I'm not 100% sure. The prop house was sued by her, and I don't think anything came of that just yet. But like, her job literally is to make sure that the guns are handled properly and that there aren't live rounds when there's a cold gun on set. Now, yes, you can blame Alec Baldwin all day because he was a producer. He hired her. She was inexperienced. She shouldn't have been working as an armorer, but she was. And she took that job, and she thought that she was capable to do that job, and she didn't do that job properly. You know, there's a lot of things that went wrong. There's negligence. There is set issues that like should have been dealt with. And I worked on Bosch for 7 fucking years. There was guns on that set every single day. We had PD personnel there every single time we had guns. We had the prop people who had the dummy guns or the regular guns. We had the fucking specialist, the armorer who did all the, like, there is so many reasons why this shouldn't have happened. And you know, there was no decision to use live ammunition. She just loaded the wrong bullets in the gun, from what I can understand from the trial. And apparently, with the evidence they collected, there were live bullets mixed with dummy bullets. And that's on you. That's your job. That is your job. You know, and apparently that morning when this happened, she was on set for 3 hours waiting for the crew to return from another location, which is plenty of time to go through your box of bullets and figure out what the fuck is going on. Now, on another note, the AD who yelled out cold gun when it wasn't a cold gun, he was charged and pleaded guilty to negligent use of a deadly weapon, and he's off on 6 months probation. So, and Alec Baldwin is still getting charged. I know someone in the chat said like
in July is going for trial.
Yeah, so that's still happening too. I don't think anyone intentionally wanted to hurt anyone. I just think that, you know why, Richard Tracy? Because the people who were making John Wick were professionals and knew what the fuck they were doing. You know,
hence why that guy is running everything.
She likes guns. She's good with guns. You know, she fucked up. She fucked up. I'm not saying she did it on purpose. I'm not saying that there was any ill intent involved. I'm sure there fucking wasn't. However, your job is to ensure the safety of guns being handled on set, and you didn't fucking do that. That's it. Period, in my opinion.
No, it was like 2 minutes. It was like 2 hours, and they were back and like, yeah, she's guilty. So it was very fast. I didn't expect to even get a verdict today. I was like, oh, it'll probably be a couple days at least. And they're like, bam, like that. So you're right.
Literally your job. That is your job.
That's probably why they had the same idea. Sean, how you feeling about this? Are you surprised? Does this make sense to you? You read Sabrina? How do you feel about the Russ armor going down for this? It's crazy. Manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter.
I mean, again, this is just a terrible situation every way you cut it, right? Like, and I think Sabrina has some great points. Like, if you're viewing it from a vacuum, I really appreciate Mike's comments about the pressures of the set and what you're doing. And you know, like, there's small things that probably went wrong this day. People probably, you know, made a mistake here that snowballed into another mistake that snowballed into this. I would not be surprised if, if I was Alec Baldwin, I would be concerned that he's next, or he could still see something from this, because it's just, again, this is not in a vacuum.
I think since she was
an
charged,
involved
Sean,
situation. Yep.
I think since she was charged, he's going to get off, because now she's already guilty for loading the gun improperly. I think that bodes very well for his case, actually, unfortunately.
I mean, you know, I could see it both ways. Honestly, like, her being guilty also, I mean, she was the one that pulled the trigger. I mean, sorry, he was the one that pulled the trigger.
Right.
Yeah. Like, you know, like that still matters.
But again,
someone...
as an actor, if you're given a cold gun and you're rehearsing, you can pull the trigger. Like it's still, what if it was while they were shooting and they weren't rehearsing and he pulled the trigger? You know what I mean? Like it's all relative.
I don't spend a lot of time with guns. I want to ask you guys, since you guys are on your shots and your Bosches and all that stuff. Like, do you know the difference between weight of a hot gun, real gun, whatever, and a cold gun? Like, what is it very like there's no difference.
It's pretty the same.
Really, no difference.
Normally there's a rubber gun though. Normally you have the rubber gun on set,
rehearsal,
but, you know.
For rehearsal, it's usually a rubber gun, and then they switch to the gun. But guess what? She would have handed him the same fucking gun if it was first take. Whether it's rehearsal or first take, in my opinion, on any set that I worked on, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Usually for rehearsals, Brian's 100% correct.
Yeah. I mean, again, shitty situation for everybody involved.
Everybody.
There's obviously remorse. There's obviously things
he was
that went
filming
wrong.
a scene, Richard.
Someone died. Yeah.
But the thing is, it was not scripted that he was supposed to point the gun anywhere. So that was like an improv kind of thing, but also he is the producer and the main actor. So if he felt in the moment that he should,
that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know, crackheads always run. Mike, you guys know what's up with improv.
Yeah.
If someone hands you a gun on a set, you ought to be able to presume that it's empty. I mean,
you should presume that, yes.
Yeah.
Because everyone, the thing
something needs to change. Something needs to she can be criminally negligent and I'll still feel sorry for her. But something needs to change because this doesn't need to happen and it shouldn't happen. So we need to figure out how to make it not happen.
Yeah.
And Alec Baldwin, they're going after him for two things for Alec Baldwin, though. One thing was they were saying, they showed the video in court where he was like waving the gun everywhere and pointing at everybody and shouting at them to keep going. So that was one thing that they're going to try to probably use in his trial next. And also the fact that the biggest thing was
that means that actors can't act then. If you have to be thinking about this other stuff, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
And that's what the AD said too. The AD said that he was in his thing, he was going, he's ready to go again, so he wasn't thinking, he was like just swailing the gun around. That's what the AD said. But they're also saying they're going after him because he said he didn't pull the trigger, and ballistics said that he did pull the trigger. So he's lying about that. What else? I know. I mean, one of those things too. It's like you're not thinking probably,
but how do you know? How do you know if you pulled the trigger or not? Like all these things are happening. Like, you know, I mean, for him to be so adamantly denying it, I think is weird. You know, but like there's a gun in your hand. You're not a fucking cop. Like how the fuck do you know? Like what? You know what I mean? If
he accidentally shot somebody, I can very easily be like, I didn't pull the trigger. I swear I didn't pull the trigger. Like because you feel bad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's your automatic response to holy shit, this happened.
Exactly.
This just happened. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're 100% right. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just like the director actually testified in her hearing, and he said that he looked at her after he was shot because it went through her and into him, and he looked at her and he heard her audibly saying, "I'm so sorry, Joel."
I'm sorry.
100 times.
Yeah.
So she was admitting fault exactly in that moment because she knows she put the bullets in the fucking gun.
Yeah.
Period.
And she was found guilty. And now we have to move forward the Alec Baldwin trial.
But she was found not guilty of the other charge. There was a tampering with evidence charge. Because she
tampering with evidence.
Yeah, so she was not guilty of that, but guilty of the involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah, which is why now it's not 3 years anymore.
Yeah, no, it's literally like we need to throw something at this. Someone was going to eventually take something like this, and it's probably not going to be over.
Good point, GR.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, thank God this didn't happen on Bone Tomahawk 100%. Or anything.
Right. I mean, it could have been, and there's a lot of fucking bad situations that could have gone down on, and this is horrible as it is. So hopefully we learn from this. It's like the whole, remember Sarah, her name, she was at AC, that they had like a bet on the railroad tracks. Yeah, and she got hit by a train because the DP told her to go back to get the camera, so she ran back to the camera and the train hit her. And they weren't even supposed to be on the tracks because they didn't have permits and they didn't have anybody watching for trains, and someone died. So dumb shit happens like that on sets when it was like non-union and it was cheap budgets, you know? You shouldn't be doing that shit.
I've never worked on a set where there were live rounds. Like, I don't even know that that's a thing. Like, I think it was just a mistake. But I mean, I could be wrong. Like, maybe if there was like a shot of someone shooting at a target or something, they use live rounds. But like, I personally have never been on a set where there were live rounds.
Well, they were doing target practice on set too at lunch. They were shooting live rounds on lunch.
Should not have been doing that. That should be the very first thing.
Makes sense why the bullets got confused.
You do that in a controlled setting. For sure.
Yep.
I mean, fuck.
And that's what the dolly grips was saying too. He's like, they were just happening all the time. He goes, they were saying during the trial that I think it was a dolly grip or it was a key grip. It was like, like all of a sudden you hear a gun go off and someone just shooting a gun. You know, it's like crazy.
It's negligent. I get it. You're in the desert It's fun
Yeah.
shooting guns in the desert. It's not responsible in that situation.
But they might twist it around Alec
isn't
Baldwin that way, being a
whole plot
producer,
behind
you know?
Babel, right? Everyone remember Babel? Those kids find a rifle and then shoot the tourist, and then the whole thing fucking falls apart.
Right? Wow.
Am I thinking of the right movie? Was that Babel?
Babel was Brad Pitt, I
Babel?
think.
Brad Pitt. That's all.
Yeah,
I can
Brad
remember.
Pitt and a bunch of different languages. I remember.
Yeah, what fucking movie was that?
They're babbling it up.
Wow, 18 years old. Congratulations, Babel.
Wow.
You can vote.
You can vote. Congratulations. But yeah,
can't
this is not yet. This is a bad situation overall, and she has been charged guilty now. Guilty again for involuntary manslaughter, but not guilty for evidence tampering. So we'll have to see what happens next with Alec Baldwin coming this July. We'll find out when he's on trial. And her sentencing is a month away.